All right, so Singleton is just about ready to send off to get some drums done by Travis Orban. And what I usually do is go through the song and pick out parts that I think are important in my program drums that I want to stay the same. So as he's going through and writing his parts, he makes sure to take into consideration some drum things that I've come up with that are intentional. Sometimes I just kind of put in filler nonsense and let him use his own creative expression, and sometimes I have things that are important to me. So I would usually do this in an email format, doing like a time range for each event of interest. But I figured on this one, since I have the screencasting thing all set up, I might as well go through and do this in a video and listen to it as we go, and we can look at the MIDI and hopefully get a better explanation and make it easier to figure out. All right, so let's walk through this. Starting off, we have two little eighth notes. The tempo of the song is set at 2/16 and the click is at 1/8. So we have two eighth notes before a count in. So I would like to actually have this count in be stick clicks and have yelling in the background, like 1, 2, 3, 4, far away from a microphone, like just picked up by the overheads. I think that would be cool. Give it a little bit of a garage bandy sound. So we get the count in here. And when I export this, I'm going to go the entire range. So it's going to start with these 2/8 of blank silence, I guess you would call it. Yeah, silence is the word. So we start off, we go into the intro. Each little segment of this intro we have 4 measures, I guess you would call them. They're each 15 eighth notes long. So each of these little guy, except for the 4th one, which is 14. It's just kind of the way it felt right. It's not really done on purpose, like for any sort of meaningful reason. We obviously have, during this part, we have the toms hitting in sync with the kind of weird / random melody on the horns, and now the guitar. The second measure has this drum fill. It's kind of a bit of a cliche drum fill, but this ends up coming back in similar forms multiple times throughout the song. So this fill, I'm not married to it necessarily. I don't think it's all that cool and unique as it is. So it could be changed. It could be made cooler. I think the distribution of subdivisions within it is just about right and sort of like the general sound, but it could be made more creative and then repeated later on in the song where it comes back. So after the kind of pre-intro, or as I'm calling it, the intro to the intro, we have the regular intro, the real intro. The way it's programmed is pretty simple, kind of like your standard, I guess, punk beat. Alternating the 1 and 2 kicks. And have it sort of alternating between riding a crash and switching over to the hats, which, I don't know, I'm liking the sound of a lot of hats in the song for some reason. Used to get, I know, like on the song Death Country, Travis convinced me to add more hats in because I just use like crashes for the entire song essentially. But yeah, now I'm digging the hats on this song. A little bit of ride work over here. And some kind of blast beat-ish fills. I like this fill. I like it's simple. It's just like crashes with snares in between, you know, rolls on the snare or whatever. I think it's pretty cool. Sounds pretty natural as it's programmed actually, so I'd be pretty pumped if it came out sounding similar to that. One thing I should probably note, like usually we communicate based on time ranges because the way I map out measures and beats and stuff, the fact that I put everything in a 1/8 time signature probably won't be useful for putting this into Guitar Pro. So the time ranges are down here, and also the number of measures, or actually beats, since it's in the 1 beat per measure. So after the intro, we jump into the first verse, which, as I explained in a previous video, has an important kick pattern. The snares are also important in terms of their placement to line up with vocal rhythms. So the kick pattern is this 1, 4, 3 that repeats throughout the entire part, even though there are like sections that don't start on the same segment of the melody, you could say. So I guess maybe that's kind of polyrhythmic. But anyhow, there are some weird subdivisions used in here. Kind of forget what they are actually at this point. I would have to screw around with the grid and figure out what kind of tuplets are in here. I will export the MIDI, which will hopefully come through. I suppose suppose this hi-hat down here could land on a kick. I mean, I think this was set up to be somewhat arbitrary, the spacing between the hats, just to kind of sound whatever. So Travis, feel free to, I don't know, put those in a place that makes sense for you. Let's see if I make these the right length. If the musical notation will reflect that. Looks like no. It's going to be difficult. Hopefully it comes through in the exported MIDI. If not, I will go through and figure out what these are manually, or I'm sure Travis can figure out by the sound of them. He might. Okay, so that's the verse. That's what I really care about there, is basically snare and kick placement. The cymbals and stuff are kind of open for business. The first chorusy type thing, Um, this stuff is all kind of driven by the vocals, so I should probably, let me turn these on. And this kick maybe isn't in the right place. Maybe it should be here. Kind of like that. Should probably have a crash in here somewhere too. Alright, let's turn the vocals back off and see if we match with the guitars fairly well. It probably matches better than this. Yeah, it does. So those accents at the end are obviously pretty important. On to the second verse. Second verse has some pretty cool fills that I programmed that I really dig. Actually, no. Second verse does not have these. This is in the second verse extension that comes after. But this verse continues the 1-4-3 pattern once again. This nonsense down here on the hats, I don't know. Threw that in there arbitrarily. Could be cooler. I don't know. These are a lot of sort of normal subdivisions, except for those three there. It would be good if I had the... I should probably keep this minimized for now so you can see the timestamps. Kind of okay fills. I don't know. Not super crazy about them. Get the job done, I suppose. Keep in mind there's a lot of vocals during this part. At the end of this verse 2 extension. So the verse 2 extension has some stuff I like. Like this kind of linear section here, I think is pretty sweet. And in general, like sneaking in linear stuff like that is pretty cool. Like really kind of dynamic. And a lot of the drums during this part do a good job of syncing up with the vocals. Especially the kicks over here. And that end fill here is I think that's pretty important to get right. Alright, so chorus 2. Very similar to chorus 1. A little bit of weird timing there, where the heartbeat chord is. And then it ends with this pretty cool fill. I can definitely imagine Travis playing that. that little goofy thing in there. I'm not. I don't know. I'm not totally digging how that sounds. Maybe a kick in there. And with a. I don't know. That little, maybe a lot of kicks there actually do make sense. A lot of 16th kicks. Okay, then we go into this fill. Some chokes on the crashes. Snare and some toms. Then we go back into a more punk, simple-ish beat here. That should be a choke there. I believe it is, but... Sometimes Superior Drummer doesn't choke. Yeah, like right there it didn't. But anyway, that should be a choke where it's silent there. Got the ride bell hit here with the kick at the same time. Sort of reminds me of some Blink-182 stuff. I do kind of like this part, how there's a little bit of sloppiness going on with just like crashes hit in the middle of nowhere. Like, stop, stop, stop. Crash and then a hit once, I guess an eighth note later. That should probably be somewhere on the grid. Somewhere not in front of the grid. This crash probably doesn't make sense. Should probably actually be in unison with this kick. Important for those kicks to be in sync with the guitars. See that cliche kind of fill coming back here. If it gets changed in the intro, change it here. Halftime intro here. More like crash flourishes, I guess you might call them. Primarily driven by the hi-hat during this part, though. We got this transition with a 1-4-3 pattern on the kicks. 1-4-3. 1. A little bit behind the beat there, because it's about to kind of get a little slower feeling. This is on a weird snare. This is not the normal snare. This part is a little wacky. It's got some kind of weird kick stuff going on, side sticks, some kind of delicate, intricate things on the hats, which I like, but the timing's not quite perfect. Shuffly sort of feel. And then this area where it's, oh, what the hell? This area where it's kind of syncing up with the arpeggios on the guitar. I mean, it should be kind of quiet as it is here. These hits aren't all full velocity. But I don't know. That guitar solo part is probably not going to change. I might actually keep that take the way it is, so keep that in mind. These drums need to fit around it. This isn't quite right, this section here. Another couple crashes out in the middle of nowhere. Goes into a regular beat on the snare. Like the flams here. These crashes at the end of that part are important to get right on the in sync with the guitar, because I'll probably keep that guitar take as well. This fill over here, kind of arbitrary choices in here. Some room for wiggle room for improvement. Last kick hit may not be quite right. So like I explained before in the last video, it is important to get these tom chugs on to match up with the guitar as is. They're not perfectly on the grid in some spots. But they're close, and sometimes they're on, you know, they're shifted a 16th to feel slower. And then the count off on the hats here, I think I do want to keep those in the drums. It'll just be important to keep track of how long these are. I don't know why this isn't a full. So those count-offs on the hats are not all the same length. Keep that in mind. They're slightly different, done by feel. Longest one being the last one. And then there's the post-solo build-up, which I described in the last video. Tempo change, like, pretty often in here, so... these numbers should make it into the MIDI file on export. but if I have to, I can create a click track using the MIDI drums and just export that as audio if need be. I have a count off at the end of this, like 2 hats in here, just to know when this guitar fill comes in. Can probably keep that in the drums. I'm just imagining if it was ever attempted to play live, you'd kind of have to do that. Then the song gets normal again. Second part of the solo. Actually programmed in some kind of cool ghost notes in here that I like. I like how this ends here too. These 2 ghost notes. And then the Flemish sounding thing. With the choke. That's sometimes a choke and sometimes not. Those flams are obviously intentional. Cool. Timing on these last ones might be a little messed up. Back into normal punk beat. Into the intro, outro. Double bass part coming back. Those double bass parts. There's one earlier in the song as well. I like those. A little triplet fill over here. End on the similar fill there, the cliche fill, with a choke at the end. Probably a slightly delayed choke. Trying to think, the first time that intro returns, there's a double kick bar. There we go. The kicks in this part where the guitars are just doing that kind of straight chug. I don't know, I guess they're okay, but maybe there's a better way to do that. I like that they're not all just like 8th note kicks. Sometimes you get the 16th notes in there. So, I don't know. I think that just about covers it. There's going to be quite a bit of back and forth as usual, I imagine, in getting this written properly. But for now, I am going to call this version 0.0.1 using the semantic versioning convention. So, gonna make a quick little commit. Minor tweaks to drums. And then I'm gonna make a git tag for this. Git tag. An annotated tag v0.0.1. Message is going to be first draft of drums sent to Orban. And it's tagged. Okay, and I'll just export the MIDI and the audio, and that'll be it. So, see ya.